The stars were silent that night, but the screams from Valora Prime reached the heavens. Once this world had been called a paradise, a shining jewel in the heart of the Orion Arm. Its oceans were bright silver, its cities glowed with crystal towers, and its skies shimmered with gentle blue light. Every race in the galaxy had envied the Valorans for their peace and beauty. They were artists, philosophers, dreamers. They had no armies because they believed war was a disease of primitive minds. But on that terrible day, beauty failed them. The sky cracked open with fire. The fleets of the Zorath Dominion fell upon Valora Prime like hungry beasts. Their warships blotted out the sun, raining plasma and death. Towers melted into rivers of glass. Forests burned to ash. The oceans boiled, filling the air with clouds of steam and smoke. Millions died in the first hour alone. The rest hid beneath the crumbling ruins, praying for mercy that would never come. In a deep underground chamber, Elder Coven knelt beside a broken console. He was the last surviving member of the High Council. His golden skin was covered in dust, and his trembling hands struggled to keep the transmission line open. The air smelled of fire and blood. Around him, wounded Valorans coughed weakly, their once beautiful eyes filled with fear. "They are everywhere, Elder," whispered a young woman beside him. "Our defenses are gone. The Zorath will destroy us all." Kovan's voice cracked as he spoke. "Then we must call them." The woman froze. "Them, you mean the humans?" Kovan nodded slowly. "Yes, the Deathworlders. The ones we cast away. The ones we feared." For a long moment, silence filled the bunker. Everyone knew the history. 2 centuries ago, the Galactic Council had turned its back on humanity. They said the people of Earth were too violent, too unpredictable, born from a death world where everything tried to kill them. Humanity had been labeled dangerous, unstable, and was exiled beyond the borders of civilized space. The Valorans had agreed to that vote. They had called it a necessary decision for galactic peace. Now, as his world burned, Elder Coven felt the weight of that betrayal. "They will never forgive us," the woman whispered. "Perhaps not," Coven said softly. "But maybe they will save us." He pressed the transmitter and began to speak. His voice shook as the signal carried his plea across the stars. "To the children of Earth, to the Terrans beyond the Rim, this is Elder Coven of Valora Prime. We are dying. The Zorath have come. We ask not for vengeance but for mercy. Please, help us." The transmission faded into the void, leaving only static behind. Coven sat in silence, staring at the broken sky visible through a crack in the ceiling. "Do you think they will come?" the young woman asked. "I don't know," he whispered. "But if they do, the galaxy will remember this day." Light years away, deep in the Sol system, the signal reached an ancient listening post orbiting Neptune. An automated relay picked it up and sent it toward the Terran Fleet Command. Within minutes, alarms echoed through the warship TFS Vengeance, the pride of Earth's armada. Its captain, Admiral Helena Drake, stood at the command deck, her sharp eyes fixed on the holographic display of Valora Prime's message. The recording played. The crew watched in silence as the broken voice of Elder Coven filled the air. The images that followed showed cities collapsing, oceans burning, and people screaming for help. When the message ended, no one spoke. Drake stood still, her jaw tight. Her gray uniform reflected the cold light of the stars. "Valora Prime," she said quietly. "They were part of the council that blockaded Earth. They starved our colonies. They left our people to die." Her second officer nodded carefully. "Yes, ma'am. They're asking for protection now." Helena's eyes darkened. "Protection?" She turned toward the window where the Earth hung like a blue diamond. "They asked Deathworlders for protection, after they called us monsters." The room remained silent. Everyone waited for her order. Drake took a deep breath and spoke with a voice that cut like steel. "Send word to the fleet. Prepare all battle groups. We leave for Valora Prime at once." The officer hesitated. "Are we saving them, ma'am?" Helena's gaze never wavered. No, she said softly. Not saving, judging. Outside the command deck, the engines of 1,000 ships roared to life. Terran War banners shimmered in the void. The Deathworlders were coming, not as saviors, but as a storm of retribution. In the cold darkness of space, the stars themselves seemed to tremble. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy would remember the wrath of Earth. The great engines of the Terran fleet came alive like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Across the vast docks of the Sol system, thousands of ships began to awaken. Warships forged from iron and fury, each carrying the mark of Earth's defiance. From small interceptors to massive dreadnoughts, they formed into ranks that stretched across the stars. For centuries, the galaxy had whispered the same word whenever they spoke of humans: Deathworlders. Born from a world of storms, predators, and endless struggle, they were creatures of endurance and rage. Every species feared their resilience, their stubborn will to fight even when defeat was certain. Now, that will was moving again, and it was headed toward Valora Prime. Admiral Helena Drake stood on the command bridge of the TFS Vengeance, her eyes fixed on the tactical screen. It showed the fleet formation, dozens of carrier groups, thousands of ships, and millions of soldiers ready to strike. Her face was calm, carved from stone, but deep inside a storm brewed. She had seen the message from Valora Prime again and again. The trembling voice of Elder Coven, the cries for mercy, the burning skies. It echoed in her mind like a ghost. There was a part of her that wanted to forgive. But the memory of old wounds refused to fade. Her mother had been one of the colonists left behind when the Galactic Council had turned its back on Earth. The Valorans had voted to isolate humanity, sealing trade routes and denying them aid. She remembered her mother's voice, weak from hunger, saying, "One day they will call us monsters, because we survived." Now that prophecy was coming true. "Fleet status?" she asked quietly. "Fully charged, Admiral," replied Commander Hales. "All jump drives synchronized, awaiting your command." Helena took a slow breath. "Then begin the march. Set course for Valora Prime." The stars bent as the fleet entered warp. Space itself seemed to scream as 1,000 ships tore through it, leaving glowing trails in the darkness. The Deathworlders were moving and the galaxy could feel it. Meanwhile, in the Valoran bunker, Elder Coven sat in the darkness, staring at the flickering holomap. The enemy was closing in. The Zorath warships had surrounded the planet completely. Every escape route was gone. "They're not coming," whispered the young woman beside him. "The humans, they've ignored us." Coven shook his head weakly. "No, the Terrans are not like us. When they decide to move, the stars themselves will know." At that very moment, space above Valora Prime trembled. A ripple of light spread across the orbit like a crack in glass. Then, without warning, the Terran fleet emerged from the void. Ship after ship appeared, each larger than the one before. The TFS Vengeance led the way, its black hull reflecting the flames of the dying planet below. Thousands of Terran banners shimmered in orbit, each marked with a silver Earth crest. The Deathworlders had arrived. Every Zorath ship turned its guns toward them. The sky became a web of red and blue fire. The battle began instantly. Terran cannons roared, tearing through the enemy like thunder. Their plasma shells burned through Zorath armor. Their fighters cut through enemy lines like knives through silk. In mere minutes, the first wave of the Zorath fleet was gone, scattered like dust before a storm. On the ground, Valorans looked up in awe. They saw fire raining from the heavens, not as destruction, but as deliverance. Their tears mixed with the ash as they whispered, "They came, the humans came." But Admiral Drake's voice on the command deck was cold. "Do not engage in rescue operations yet. Maintain fire pattern Gamma. I want every Zorath ship erased." Her second officer hesitated. "Admiral, the Valoran civilians, many are still alive below. Should we—" "Not yet," she cut him off sharply. "This is not mercy. This is justice." The fleet moved in perfect formation, its bombardment precise and relentless. Each strike was controlled, every maneuver a lesson in wrath and discipline. From orbit, The Terran fleet looked like an iron storm surrounding a single burning world. After hours of battle, the last Zorath ship exploded in silence, leaving nothing but wreckage and smoke. The fleet hung in orbit like silent gods. Enemy fleet destroyed, Hales reported. Valora Prime is secure. Helena Drake stood still, her reflection shining in the glass of the observation window. The world below was ruined. Cities gone, oceans blackened, and millions dead. The Valorans had begged for salvation, but what stood above them now was not a savior's light. It was judgment pure and unflinching. Begin landing operations, Helena finally said. But remember, Earth does not forget. We came to answer their plea, in our own way. Her voice was calm, yet it carried the weight of centuries. Around her the crew nodded. They knew this was more than a mission. This was history being written in flame and silence. As the Terran dropships descended through the smoke, Elder Coven looked to the sky once more. The humans had come, but their eyes held no mercy. He fell to his knees and whispered, "Perhaps this is what we deserve." And above him, the Deathworlders descended like angels of vengeance, bringing with them the judgment of Earth. The air on Valora Prime was thick with smoke and ash. Cities that had once gleamed like crystal now lay in ruins, their towers shattered, streets buried under rubble, and oceans blackened by fire. The smell of charred earth and melted metal filled the lungs of the few survivors. Amid the devastation, Elder Coven stumbled out of the bunker, his golden skin darkened by soot, eyes wide with fear and awe. Above him, the Terran dropships cut through the smoky sky, massive shadows moving with precise, terrifying grace. The humans were not just soldiers, they were storm incarnate, and the galaxy had never seen such a fleet of disciplined fury. Coven had thought of them as monsters, dangerous warriors of a harsh world. But seeing them now, he realized they were something far greater. They were judgment itself, unflinching, unrelenting, and impossible to bargain with. A Terran landing party descended near the city ruins. Their armor gleamed even through the thick haze. Each soldier moved with a controlled power, weapons held but not firing. They scanned the ruins, their eyes sharp, assessing threats. But their movement spoke of a quiet purpose, discipline carved into every step. Coven fell to his knees, tears running down his dirt-streaked face. We begged for mercy," he whispered. "And yet..." His voice broke. "We see judgment." A figure approached through the smoke. Admiral Helena Drake herself, standing tall on the hill above the city. Her presence alone made Covan feel small, like a fragile insect in the face of a god. Her gray eyes scanned the ruins, but she did not look at the Valorans with anger. She looked with clarity. She had come not to destroy for pleasure, but to balance the scales. "We came," she said, her voice carrying over the ruins, "because you asked. But understand this, Earth never forgets." The Valorans shivered. Many fell to their knees. Some begged for forgiveness. Some simply stared, numb. Coven raised his trembling hands. "We were wrong. We turned away from your people, and now we suffer. Please, show us mercy." Helena's lips pressed into a thin line. Her gaze swept over the ruined city. The silence between them was heavy, like a weight pressing on every living thing. Finally she spoke. "Mercy is earned, Elder Covan, and your people have a long debt." Coven's heart sank. He had imagined humans as saviors, as beings who might forgive, who might lift them from the ashes. Instead, they had arrived as judges, measuring the years of betrayal and cruelty, weighing them against the cries of the innocent now gone. From the hills, Coven saw Terran engineers moving through the city. They did not destroy further. They rebuilt where possible, cleared rubble, rescued the few who had survived. Their actions were precise, efficient, and unforgivingly just. They did not hesitate, did not linger, and did not falter. It was clear humanity gave aid, but only after the reckoning had been made. The Zorath had been eliminated. The fleet had been crushed, and yet Coven could feel the heavy weight of judgment in every Terran step. Every human soldier carried with them the memory of what had been lost when Valorans had turned away from Earth centuries ago. The past was alive in their eyes, and it burned hotter than any weapon. A child, no older than 10, crawled out from a pile of rubble. Black smoke clung to his hair and his clothes were torn. He stared at the humans with wide, frightened eyes. One of the Terran soldiers knelt beside him, extending a hand. The child hesitated. Then, slowly, he reached out. The soldier's grip was firm, but not cruel. It was a reminder of strength, not fear. Elder Coven watched, chest tight with emotion. He realized then that humanity's power was not in their weapons or ships, but in their will. Their resilience, their discipline, their ability to strike and to save on their own terms. It was terrifying and beautiful. Helena Drake turned to Kovan. "We did not come here to punish the innocent," she said. "We came to remind you of the price of betrayal. You begged for salvation, and received judgment first. Learn from it." Kovan bowed his head, tears streaming down. "Yes, Admiral. We will remember." As the Terran forces began evacuating survivors and setting up secure zones, Kovan looked out across the ruined city. The Valorans had survived barely, but the lesson had been etched in their souls. Humanity had arrived, not as saviors, not as conquerors, but as the reckoning. Above him, the human ships hung in orbit, silent but watchful. Their presence was a promise and a warning. The Death Worlders did not forgive lightly, and when they came, the galaxy would know their judgment. The winds of Valora Prime carried ash and the cries of the saved and the broken alike. Elder Coven whispered a vow into the smoke-filled sky. "May our people remember this day, and honor what we have seen. The Death Worlders came not to destroy for sport, but to teach, and we have learned too late." Helena Drake, standing among her soldiers, watched as the survivors began to move. Humanity's shadow had passed over Valora Prime, and though mercy followed, it came only after fire, only after judgment, and only after remembering what betrayal costs. Valora Prime had survived the first storm of the Terran fleet, but the planet itself seemed to hold its breath. Smoke still rose from broken towers. Fires burned in abandoned streets, and the scent of ash clung to every breath. Yet amidst the ruin, life stirred again, careful, trembling, and uncertain. Elder Coven walked among the survivors, his heart heavy. He had thought salvation meant safety, that the humans might forgive, that perhaps his people could rise from the ashes without shame. But he had been wrong. The humans did not forgive lightly. Their arrival had brought order and judgment, and the lesson had been carved into every street, every ruined tower, and every broken soul. "They are different," whispered one young Valoran, barely able to stand. "Their eyes, they see everything. Our past, our crimes, everything we hid." Coven nodded slowly. "Yes, the Death Worlders carry memory like fire. They never forget, and they never forgive until the scales are balanced." Above them, Terran dropships moved in precision. Soldiers guided survivors to safety, set up secure zones, and began clearing what remained of the enemy's remnants. There was no chaos in their actions, no hesitation. Every movement, every decision, every strike had purpose. It was discipline born of survival, honed over centuries on a world that would have killed them all if they had faltered even once. Admiral Helena Drake stood on a ridge overlooking the ruined city. Her gray eyes scanned the horizon, cold and sharp. In her presence, the Valorans felt both awe and fear. She did not raise her weapon. She did not shout. Yet, with a single glance, she reminded everyone that the humans were not here to comfort, but to correct. "Check every sector," she ordered. "Ensure no Zorath remnants survive. Every survivor must be documented. Every weapon confiscated. The planet must know the cost of turning away from Earth." "Yes, Admiral," Commander Hales replied. His voice was steady, though even he felt the weight of the task. Meanwhile, Coven led a small group of survivors toward the central plaza, now a field of rubble and ash. Among the bodies and broken vehicles, he saw children clinging to their parents, old Valorans weeping silently, and young warriors staring at the humans with fear and confusion. He wanted to speak, to comfort them, but words failed. Instead, he gestured to the descending Terran soldiers. "They are judgment," he whispered, "and mercy too if we earn it." A Terran officer approached Coven. She was young, her armor scratched from battle, her face streaked with soot, yet her voice was calm as she addressed him. "Elder Coven," she said, "document all survivors. Those who resisted the Zorath will be recorded. Those who helped their own people will be noted. Earth does not save those who only survive themselves." Coven bowed his head. He understood. Humanity's mercy was measured, earned through action, not begged for. From the ridge, Helena Drake observed a group of Valorans scavenging supplies from ruined buildings. One of them tried to hide a small weapon in his cloak. Without speaking, a Terran soldier approached, removed it, and set it down carefully. No punishment, no rage, only silent instruction. The message was clear. Earth did not tolerate betrayal or weakness. Survival alone was not enough. Strength, courage, and honesty were required. Coven's chest tightened. For centuries, the Valorans had believed themselves superior, cultured, wise, above the violent ways of Deathworlders. Now, beneath the cold shadow of Helena Drake and her fleet, they saw their own failings laid bare. "Do you think they will leave us alive?" a survivor asked, voice trembling. Coven looked up at the sky where the Terran ships hung like silent guardians. He could not lie. "They will," he said slowly, "but not because we deserve it. Because they judge rightly, and because they know mercy is only meaningful when earned." Below, the humans moved with quiet authority. Dropships descended carrying engineers and medical teams. Terran soldiers helped the wounded, but they did not rush. Every action was deliberate. Every movement taught a lesson in order, resilience, and discipline, and in that moment Coven understood the true nature of the Deathworlders. They were more than warriors. They were judges, teachers, and guardians, all in one. They did not act out of vengeance alone, but out of principle, and when they struck, their actions left no doubt. Earth never forgives lightly, but it never forgets. As night fell over Valora Prime, fires still burned, but the survivors had begun to gather, guided by Terran soldiers. The planet was scarred beyond recognition, yet in the hearts of the Valorans a seed had been planted. A seed of fear, respect, and awe. Helena Drake watched the survivors move, silent and unwavering. She had delivered judgment. She had saved those who could be saved, and yet her mind carried a quiet, unspoken warning. The lesson had just begun. The galaxy would remember this day, not as the day humans conquered, but as the day humanity arrived and the world learned the cost of betrayal. And somewhere, deep in the ashes of Valora Prime, Elder Coven whispered a vow. "We will never forget. We will never betray again, and we will honor those who taught us the true meaning of strength." The sun rose over Valora Prime, but it revealed a world unrecognizable. Cities that had gleamed like silver now lay in ruins, blackened and twisted. The ocean shimmered with ash instead of light, and the air was thick with the smell of smoke. Yet life stirred, trembling and fragile, like the first green shoots after a wildfire. Elder Coven walked among the survivors, his steps heavy. The people had looked to the Terran fleet as saviors, but now Coven understood. They had been witnesses to something far greater. The humans had come not only to rescue, but to teach a lesson the galaxy could not ignore. Children clung to broken parents, eyes wide with fear and awe. Young warriors stared at the Terran soldiers, unsure whether to bow or flee. Every glance, every movement from the humans radiated discipline and strength, a reminder that Earth's children did not act without purpose. Coven's own heart ached as he remembered the centuries of pride his people had carried. They had believed themselves civilized, wise, untouchable, and now under the shadow of humanity's judgment they saw their arrogance laid bare. "They are so different from what we imagined," whispered a young survivor, barely able to hold herself up. "We thought humans were violent monsters, but they are something more." "Yes," Kovan said quietly. "They are truth in motion. They see the past, the lies, the failures, and they act accordingly. We cannot hide from them. We cannot escape the consequences. From above, Admiral Helena Drake watched the survivors move with quiet calculation. Terran soldiers helped the wounded, cleared rubble, and set up secure shelters. Their presence was absolute yet controlled, a blend of judgment and mercy that left no doubt. The humans could destroy everything if they chose, but they would save those deemed worthy. Coven felt the weight of their gaze, as if the very fleet itself measured his worth. "We begged for salvation," he whispered, "and received judgment, and yet they help us." "Yes," the young survivor said, "but it is not charity. It is responsibility. They make us pay attention. They remind us what we lost and why it matters." The Terran soldiers moved among the people with silent authority, confiscating hidden weapons, teaching the survivors to rebuild, and reminding them that strength, courage, and honesty were required to endure. Coven watched as a child handed over a small hidden blade to a soldier without fear. The gesture was simple, yet it carried the weight of trust earned through discipline. Helena's voice rang across the plaza, calm but firm. "Earth does not forget. Earth does not forgive lightly. Your survival is not proof of worth. It is the beginning of a lesson. Learn it or the consequences will follow." The Valorans listened, hearts pounding. Some bowed, humbled. Others whispered among themselves, shaken by the truth of her words. All understood. Survival alone was not enough. Hours passed and the Terran engineers worked tirelessly. They erected temporary shelters, cleared roads, and removed explosive remnants of Zorath technology. Every action was precise. Every movement was purposeful. Coven realized that the humans were not saviors in the way his people had imagined. They were judges and teachers, carrying the weight of centuries of struggle, loss, and discipline. A young Velaran boy approached Coven, holding a small blackened toy. "Will they stay?" he asked quietly. "The humans. Will they leave us alone?" Coven looked at the fleet above, massive ships casting long shadows over the city. "They will leave," he said slowly. "But their lessons will stay. They came to remind us that the galaxy is not kind. That betrayal carries a price. That weakness is remembered. And that survival must be earned through courage and honor." The boy nodded slowly, understanding more than his years should allow. Kovan turned to watch a Terran soldier helping a wounded Velaran mother lift her child. The soldier's grip was firm yet gentle. The gesture, simple as it seemed, was the embodiment of everything humans had become. A species forged in hardship, tempered by pain and guided by principles that demanded respect. The elder whispered a vow, low but unwavering. "We will survive, but not just to live, we will remember. And when the galaxy questions us again, we will carry the memory of this day and honor those who taught it." As the sun climbed higher, smoke still curling from the ruins, Coven understood something profound. Humanity did not save because it was easy. It acted because it had endured, and it expected others to do the same. The burden of survival was heavier now, yet it was also clearer. The lesson had been delivered not with words, but with action, fire, and unyielding resolve. And in the distance, above the blackened world, the Terran ships remained, silent, patient, and eternal witnesses to the cost of arrogance, the weight of betrayal, and the strength of a species that refused to be forgotten. Valora Prime had survived, but it would never be the same. The Deathworlders had come, and in their wake, the Velarans understood the meaning of true power, true discipline, and true judgment. Valora Prime was quiet now, but it was a heavy, uneasy quiet. The fires had died down, and the smoke slowly drifted into the sky, leaving the blackened skeleton of the cities visible beneath the rising sun. The survivors moved cautiously, their eyes always flicking upward to the Terran fleet hovering in orbit like a vigilant storm. Elder Coven led them to the central plaza, the heart of their ruined capital. Here the Terran soldiers had established a temporary command center, and a human voice rang across the square, steady and commanding. "Velorans," said Admiral Helena Drake, her voice carrying across the ruins. "You survived the Zorath. That is no small feat. But survival alone does not absolve you. Today you face your trial," the crowd murmured. Some shivered with fear. Others lowered their heads ashamed. They understood what she meant. Humanity did not grant mercy without judgment. Those who had once condemned humans now stood under the shadow of their power, awaiting the measure of their worth. Kovan's hands shook. He had begged for salvation, and it had come in the form of fire and discipline. Now he would see whether his people could truly earn the gift of mercy. "The trial is simple," Helena continued. "Every survivor will be observed. Every action, every choice will determine your place in the future of Valora Prime. Those who act with courage, honesty, and care for others will be spared. Those who act with deceit, cowardice, or betrayal will face consequences." A hush fell. The words were not threats, they were law. Humanity's law. The first trial began immediately. Terran soldiers moved among the people, offering tasks, rescue missions through unstable ruins, clearing debris, tending to the wounded, and recovering supplies. Every Valoran who participated was watched, every decision noted. Kovan saw the younger survivors step forward first. They moved with fear but determination, helping the wounded and leading others to safety. Their courage shone brightly, a fragile light in the ashes of their world. But not all were so brave. Some tried to hide to avoid work or to save themselves at the expense of others. Terran soldiers intercepted them quietly but firmly, redirecting them, correcting them, teaching them that weakness and selfishness were remembered. Kovan himself joined the efforts, guiding families through ruined streets, lifting debris, and comforting those who had lost everything. Every action felt heavy with purpose. Every step carried the weight of centuries of betrayal his people had inflicted upon humanity. Above them, the fleet remained still in orbit, silent witnesses to every movement. The Deathworlders did not intervene unnecessarily. They observed, measured, and waited, teaching lessons not with words but with presence, discipline, and principle. Hours passed and the survivors began to understand. Humanity's trial was not about punishment. It was about awareness. Every choice reflected who they were, what they valued, and whether they could rise from the ashes of their arrogance. A Valoran mother, carrying her youngest child, helped an injured neighbor climb over rubble. A boy guided lost elders to safety. Each act was observed, recorded, and acknowledged. Humanity's eyes missed nothing. Kovan watched, chest tight with emotion. Valora Prime was quiet at last. The fires had burned down to embers, the smoke rising like ghosts over the blackened cities. Survivors moved cautiously, their steps heavy with exhaustion and awe. The Terran fleet remained in orbit, massive and immovable, watching over the planet with a silent, unwavering gaze. Humanity had come, and now they waited, not for orders but for lessons to be learned. Elder Kovan stood at the edge of the central plaza, surrounded by his people. The devastation had left him hollow, yet in his chest a flicker of something stronger had awakened. Respect, fear, and above all, understanding. The humans were not here to rescue. They were here to remind. "They have seen everything," Kovan whispered to the survivors around him. "Our pride, our mistakes, our cowardice. They do not forget, and we will carry this day with us forever." A Terran landing party approached, led by a young officer. She moved with quiet authority, scanning the group of Velorans with sharp eyes. Yet when she spoke, her voice was calm, almost gentle. "Document the survivors," she said. "Those who resisted the Zorath, those who protected their own, those who admit their failures, all will be recorded. Their names will be remembered. Their lessons will be shared with their people." Kovan bowed his head. He understood fully now. The humans did not punish indiscriminately. They measured worth. They offered mercy, but only after judgment had been made. From the hill above, Admiral Helena Drake watched silently. Her gray eyes swept over the broken city, over the trembling survivors and finally rested on Elder Coven. She had delivered the first wave of reckoning. The fleet had destroyed the Zorath invaders, punished betrayal, and restored order. But the greater task remained: to imprint the lesson of humanity on those who had forgotten the cost of arrogance. Helena spoke, her voice cutting through the silence. Earth does not forgive lightly. It does not forget easily. You begged for salvation, Velerans, and you received judgment first. This is your chance to learn. Remember it. Change your ways. Honor those who gave you this lesson. The Valorans bowed deeply. Some wept openly. Others whispered vows they had never spoken aloud before. They had survived, but not untouched. The humans had shown them the true measure of strength: discipline, endurance, courage, and the will to act when the galaxy trembled. A child stepped forward from the crowd, no more than 10 cycles old, holding a burned toy in his hands. He looked at Helena with wide eyes, unsure if he should speak. You didn't destroy us," the child said quietly, "even though we were wrong. You came?" Helena's gaze softened just a fraction. "We destroy only what deserves destruction," she replied. "Those who survive must earn their place in the galaxy. Learn, grow, and honor what has been given to you." The words sank deep into the hearts of every Valoran present. They realized that survival was not enough. Strength must be proven. Respect must be earned. And betrayal would always carry a cost. Elder Coven raised his head, looking toward the fleet above. We will rebuild," he said, voice firm. "We will remember. And we will honor those who taught us the meaning of true strength." Helena Drake gave a small nod and turned toward the waiting dropships. The lesson was complete. The judgment had been delivered. The survivors would carry the memory of humanity's wrath and mercy alike for generations to come. As the fleet prepared to depart, Coven felt the weight of history settle on his shoulders. The Valorans had seen the truth of the Deathworlders, the relentless strength, the disciplined might, the measured mercy. They had seen what it meant to face judgment without complaint. The human ships rose into the black sky, engines glowing blue, leaving Valora Prime behind. Yet their presence lingered in the hearts of the Valorans, a reminder that the galaxy held those who would judge fairly, act decisively, and never forget. And in the quiet that followed, Coven whispered a vow into the ashes and wind. "We will never forget this day. We will teach our children, our people, and every world we touch what it means to face the Deathworlders. We will honor them, and we will never again fail to act when the galaxy calls for justice." Valora Prime had survived. The Zorath were gone. Humanity had left, but the lesson remained, a shadow that would stretch across the stars. The galaxy now remembered. When the Deathworlders arrive, they bring not only salvation for the worthy, but judgment for the unprepared, and Valora Prime, forever scarred, would carry that truth in its heart, and tremble in awe for generations to come.